The pre-draft process for Ace Bailey has been among the strangest of any prospect in recent history, and it all may have come to a breaking point with the Rutgers star canceling his workout with the Philadelphia 76ers. With the Sixers holding possession of the third pick, does this entirely take Ace Bailey off the draft board, and should it? Now, I've stood 10 toes down on the take since the Sixers first got the third overall pick that Ace Bailey was my guy. But for the first time, I do think that ship has sailed, and I do think the Sixers are right to look in other directions. This guy has not handled the pre-draft process well whatsoever, and this comes on top of there already being legitimate questions about his play. Going to dive into exactly what we know on the Ace Bailey conversation, and let's get right into things right here with this report from Jonathan Navoni of ESPN that says news. Rutgers star Ace Bailey has canceled his workout with the Philadelphia 76ers, sources told ESPN. Bailey remains the only U.S.-based prospect yet to visit any NBA teams. The Sixers have not ruled out selecting Bailey, sources said. And he also adds this little caveat here that it's worth noting that Daryl Morey has selected several players in the past without a private workout, including Tyrese Maxey and McCain. The Sixers scouted Rutgers extensively all season and have interviewed him in Chicago. They very well could still select Ace Bailey at 3. Now, that brings me over to my number one point here, that Ace Bailey in particular, my read on this is not a bad kid. This is a kid receiving very bad advice from whoever is in his camp right now. And I know shout out to RB Philly Take, who's done some interesting deep dives on Sharif Cooper, his father representing him, and sort of the ties between all this. I do recommend checking that out and diving into that on his channel here. But I do want to keep this about Ace Bailey specifically here. My understanding, my impressions of Ace, this is not a guy that I've had a ton of contact with. I did reach out to try and get an interview, did get no reply there, and based on the fact that he is turning down interviews and workouts from teams that are signing up to pay him millions of dollars, I'm going to take no offense to him not picking up the phone for my phone call and interview attempt there. But for Ace specifically here, the intel that I've heard about him from somebody that I know that's fairly plugged in the Rutgers scene is that he's a very high energy, cool personality, good teammate that people like to be around, but he is a little bit of a goofball, a little bit of a goes with the wind type of personality, and that's sort of the Ace Bailey experience here. Now, where I think things are being short-sighted and read wrong from the Ace Bailey camp is they want to make sure he's on the ideal position and team, I guess you want to put it. I guess situation is the better word here. That the buzzword that continues coming to mind as we get through this Ace Bailey conversation is the quote pathway to development that was floated out there a couple weeks ago. That is what he has his eyes on. Now we have a bunch of different takes on this. Shout out to Sam Vecini, who does an excellent job covering the pre-draft all these stuff leading up to the draft, and he tweets out either Ace Bailey has something lined up somewhere that he feels comfortable with, or we've got real representation malpractice happening before our eyes. Only two options at this point. Even still, in my opinion, it feels like Bailey's reps choices are making him out to be some sort of diva. The fact that he has not worked out for any NBA team is pretty insane at this point in the game. Now, for the Sixers comparison, and the thought process on them drafting somebody that they have not worked out, in general, that is not a huge deal. That does happen at a far more regular rate than you would expect there. But the difference being here is you kind of hold the cards when you're the third overall pick. That you know only two players are going to be off the board when you're selecting. For McCain, to use specifically as an example, who of course the Sixers selected 16th overall last year, that the story, and obviously this always comes out after the fact, but the slant that Daryl Morey puts out publicly there is that we always had interest in McCain. We did not want other teams to know we had interest to McCain. So sitting there at 16, we're not going to bring the dude in for workouts. We know enough and feel confident enough in who he is as a basketball player and a person that we're going to sit back and make the selection without it ever popping on other teams' radar that this is a guy that we're targeting. Now, this all could be smoke and just kind of luck that McCain was still there. That was their best choice and that was their guy. And then they kind of roll with the narratives from there. But that's kind of where the points comes down to. With the third pick, very different situation. You're in full control here. You're not banking on guys dropping. You're not sorting through who is the best value still on the board. You're kind of in control, and that is why you have more opportunities to work these guys out, get direct communication with them. And for Ace Bailey specifically, the latest report that has come out with this is that he wanted a promise before the workout here. Now, call me crazy, but don't you think the number one step or the clearest pathway to getting a promise that he'll be selected with the third overall pick would be by getting inside the Sixers organization, meeting the coaches, meeting the franchise decision makers, and making a good impression in your workout? That's that's what I would say the best pathway would be to guaranteeing yourself that you're selected with a third overall pick. But for Ace Bailey specifically, what I think is clear is he wants to be in an opportunity and situation where he can sort of be the guy from day one. And this has been the concerns about Ace Bailey from the beginning. It's not a talent situation. We know the talent is there, although there are flaws in this. And to dive into those flaws exactly, I did want to pull up this scouting report from Kevin O'Connor. He notes the at-rim finishing for Ace Bailey. That though athletic when leaping in space, he is still wiry and can be bumped off his intended driving path. He made only 42.1% of his layups in the half court per synergy. It's undeniable that his strength needs to get way better. His shooting consistency. He has great touch, but has streaky results from three. Even from the line, he only made 54.9% of his free throws over his first 13 collegiate games before closing the remainder of the season at 82.1%. I believe his final percentage is right around 69%. Not exactly what you hope to see for a score-first type wing player. Then his shot selection. This is probably the number one concern that has to do with Ace Bailey. That though he's been effective on pull-up twos, over 2/3 of his total shots come from the mid-range. Will he be able to extend his range? Will he be willing to change his shot diet? Could he develop the ability to get to the basket more often? Now, as far as the three-point prevalence, there's no doubt in my mind that Ace Bailey is going to shoot more threes at the NBA level. That tends to happen to every single prospect, certainly every score-first prospect there, and I think he will adjust by that. But there's always been sort of this debate and this concern for, is it a skill thing or is it a shot selection thing? The fact that he's not getting to the rim at a high level, is that because he can't, because he does not have the burst to turn the corner, the strength to push guys off the spot, or is this simply he's more comfortable pulling up and taking that tough two where he is 6'7" and no one can block his shot? Now, for Ace Bailey specifically, I do believe the skill set there. It is a question of what's in here and what's in there. And again, this is not me indicting him as a human being and believing he's a bad guy. I think he's just going by some very bad advice at this current point. But I believe that his clear path or his clear goal is go to a team that can be his. Even under the best of circumstances here. Let's say we turn into a full-scale rebuild here in Philadelphia, which is not out of the realm of possibility. He'll be running mates with the Tyrese Maxeys and Jared McCain. If he's going to a team like the Brooklyn Nets, you have a chance to carve out a clear path for yourself to be the franchise face for the foreseeable future. Now, where I think this is short-sighted is Ace Bailey's very raw, that it's going to take him a couple years to fully put the pieces together, regardless of the situation that he will be in. And my personal belief here is the best pathway for him as a basketball player making the NBA leap would be to put a little bit on your plate at the beginning and then add and add year after year. I know Paul George is oftentimes thrown around as a comparison a bit too frequently for my liking, that I think stylistically he sort of fits the game of a lot of players, that he gets thrown under that umbrella or is the umbrella that players are thrown on far too often. But I do think it applies to the Ace Bailey situation. And the reason I say that is think about Paul George coming out of college. Spent his collegiate year at Fresno State here. When he came into the NBA, take a look at his first season as a pro. At 20 years old, he played 20.7 minutes per game, averaged 7.8 points per game. He had to carve out a lane for himself as a little bit of a defense-first guy, that he was not a good shooter coming in the NBA, below 30% from three. There's a world where Ace Bailey does not pop as a shooter from day one. But what the lesson I think is to take from Paul George is he found a way to get himself on the court, and then he gradually added more and more to his game, that he began to see more opportunities within the flow of the offense, become that guy, grow into this clear-cut 10-time All-Star Hall of Famer that we know Paul George to be. For Ace Bailey specifically, we got a long ways before we're getting there, but you should not be panicking at age 19 for what your role is going to be in year one. Take a little bit of a look into the long term, and mind you, this is directly costing him money in the short term too. All these guys, when they make their money or when they're true cash out, change the history of my family or the future of my entire bloodline here, that's in the second and third contracts. That's not going to happen in the rookie deal regardless here. The focus of Ace Bailey should be getting your foot in the door somewhere where you can believe you can grow, and it's clear to me that he does not believe that is Philadelphia. For the Sixers specifically here, this is kind of a tough pill to swallow, that I think a lot of this has been them trying to create leverage, trying to create a market price for this third pick to drive up potential trade options, and it does feel like they've lost a little bit of control of this. I do think from Ace Bailey specifically that this isn't something that he's going to be remembered fondly for, that I think like even from a Sixers perspective, this will be something that certainly sticks with me, and I think for the organization forever, that every time there's a matchup with Ace Bailey, we'll have that thought of, this could have been him on our team. And maybe this works out to where he does end up being a bust or a guy who mentality, the maturity, these are signs of things to come. These are legitimate red flags being brought to the table here. Or maybe there is a world where this dude flourishes as a star and we think what could have been moving forward. Regardless, Ace Bailey has sort of made the list from the Philadelphia perspective. And the other message that I want to make clear here is this applies for multiple situations. It's very rare in today's NBA that a player, the team they're drafted on, you spend the entirety of his career here. Let's flash forward 3-4 years. That Ace Bailey is through that rookie contract and hits free agency. What if he's the missing piece on this Sixers organization at that point in the game? Do you think these feelings are just forgotten there? I think he's made a lot more enemies than should have been the case through this pre-draft process. This is a guy who's unquestionably one of the three most talented players in this NBA draft class, but he's not going to be selected third overall for a lot of the way that he went about things here. For a guy who I've given a lot of sympathy for he was a 4-year public school guy, went to Rutgers, which is far from a blue chip collegiate basketball program type of situation there. There's things that you had to look the other way to be an Ace Bailey believer, but he's just giving you more and more reasons why that shouldn't be the case or the position at this point in the game. It'll be interesting to see when things age and how Ace Bailey shakes out, but I do think from the Sixers perspective at this point in the game, we can pretty much cross that name off the draft list for the third overall pick. So VJ Edgecombe, welcome to Philadelphia, my friend, because it does seem to be that is the way that things are trending. There is still a little bit less than a week till the draft to this point. I find it crazy that Ace Bailey is making this amount of noise and has not worked out for any teams with this little time in the game. Any way I slice this feels like a complete mismanagement of the way that he has handled himself, but nonetheless, the Sixers have to roll with the punches and find a way to keep making this team better. If that means drafting VJ Edgecombe over Ace Bailey, maybe the decision was just made for them. But let me know what you guys think of all this. This is a unique situation even to the Sixers, who certainly have had their fair share of bizarre draft situations throughout the years here. But this was literally a situation where the Sixers had the hotel booked, had the dinner reservations made, had the workout plans all lined up in less than 24 hours before all these things are about to go down. Ace Bailey says, nope, I'm not coming. Keep it reserved for somebody else, but I'm not going to be in Philadelphia. So we'll see how things shake from there. But I do think we can cross Ace Bailey off our Sixers mock drafts here, and a bit surprised the way that things did fully go down. But let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. Is it officially time to kiss the Ace Bailey dream goodbye? Should we center all of our attention on VJ Edgecombe, Con Knipple, Trey Johnson, on the rest of the names moving forward? Drop your thoughts below in the comments. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in to this video here. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.